Hi, I'm Dr. Oriaku, a sleep and pulmonary physician. Welcome to Dr. Oriaku's Corner. In my earlier video on why I chose sleep medicine, I mentioned that the story of why I chose pulmonary medicine deserved its own video. So here it is. To tell the story honestly, I have to start with something personal. During residency, I was very aware that I needed to finish training and start earning a living. As the first physician from a socioeconomically disadvantaged family, there was a kind of pressure that stayed in the background almost constantly. The pressure of not just wanting stability, but needing stability. The pressure of knowing there was no financial backup waiting for me. The pressure of being one call away from not having enough money. This was not some abstract idea. And yet, despite that very real pressure, my curiosity stayed strong. Strong enough that honestly, I sometimes needed someone to intervene and remind me that I could not spend eternity studying just for the love of it. So that is the backdrop. Now, let me take you back a bit. During medical school, for every subject I studied, my goal was to master the physiology. That was always the part I cared about most. If I understood the physiology, everything else tended to make more sense. And physiology was fun. Well, until pulmonary physiology. Pulmonary physiology to me at the time felt like it was of the devil. I could get a cursory understanding of it, enough to survive, enough to pass, but not enough to feel deeply confident. Not enough to feel that I could really teach it the way I wanted to. I tutored a lot of other subjects with relative ease. Pulmonary, I tutored with a lot of hesitation. So pulmonary medicine was not on my radar as a specialty I would pursue. Critical care, on the other hand, was different. I had a real love-hate relationship with critical care. To me, critical care felt like internal medicine dialed up by 1,000 degrees. If you loved physiology, there it was. If you loved complexity, there it was. If you wanted to think across organ systems in real time, there it was. That was what critical care was for me. As a medical student, I took as many ICU rotations as I could, and every one of them confirmed how much I loved that world intellectually. But it also became clear that loving something intellectually and being able to live inside of it sustainably and not always a safe experience. The ICU entailed early mornings and late nights. There was not enough time between shifts to recover. I carried my patients' stories and struggles home with me. I dreamt about them. I cried with patients and families as they mourned. And I got reprimanded for that. And at some point, I began to think, maybe I am not cut out for this. Not because I did not care enough, but maybe because I cared in a way that cost me too much. I am an introvert. I need recovery time. I need sleep. I am one of those people who genuinely need maybe more sleep than the average. So I started to think that maybe critical care would be one of those great loves I would simply carry as a memory, but not my career. Then residency happened. And one day during internal medicine residency, I got a call from a chief resident. He basically said, please do us this favor. There is this elective rotation we have to fill each month for a third-year resident. And the assigned resident cannot do it because of extenuating circumstances. No one else is willing to take it. We think you are more than capable, even though you are only a first year, but you will be starting your second year soon. That rotation was pulmonary hypertension. I did not really fight the request, partly because I did not think I could, for reasons that might warrant its own video. But Also, because if I'm being honest, I felt flattered to be seen as capable. I was nervous, curious, but nervous. I was afraid of failing. Then the rotation started, and I loved it. I loved it because it was so intricate. It was cardiopulmonary medicine through a deeply physiologic and holistic lens. It demanded that you think about pressure, flow, heart-lung interaction, hemodynamics, and also patient suffering, all at the same time. And that work with and for patients was fulfilling. The attendants on that rotation took a liking to me and encouraged me to apply myself more deeply. They entertained my questions, my ideas, my hypotheses. They supported me in publishing papers, submitting case reports, and oral presentations. I was scared doing all of that, very scared, but I did it scared because people were respected, had enough faith in me that I started borrowing some of that faith for myself. And because I enjoyed the rotation so much, I went back for more pulmonary hypertension electives. My co-residents at that time started joking that I was the next pulmonary hypertension specialist in training. And then I reached a decision point. Do I pursue this specialty that gives me so much delight because it is so physiology heavy and so integrative? Or do I honor my fear? Because the fear was not imaginary. Pulmonary hypertension is high stakes. Critical care is high stakes. Both involve frequent patient suffering. Both can demand long hours, emotional endurance, and significant physical costs. And at that point, I still did not feel like I understood pulmonary physiology to my heart's content. So now I had two areas I loved, pulmonary hypertension and critical care. And both gave me a lot, but both also took a lot from me. So I made what felt like the sensible decision. I decided I would cherish these loves as meaningful parts of my training and stick with a general internal medicine path after residency. Because while medicine is not easy, I also deeply believe in doing no harm. And if I hurt myself in the process of caring for others, that is still harm. And I cannot show up well for patients if I do not also care for the person who is showing up. Then one of my pulmonary hypertension attendants asked me what I was planning to do after residency. I told him I was probably going to apply for an internal medicine job after residency because of all the reasons I just mentioned. And then almost as an aside, I added something like, and also pulmonary physiology is of the devil. He paused and then he said, so let me get this straight. You love pulmonary hypertension and critical care. You are extremely curious, and your main issue is that you don't yet understand pulmonary physiology the way you want to. Wouldn't doing a pulmonary critical care fellowship be the perfect opportunity to finally learn pulmonary physiology and practice what you love? And there it was. That was it. That conversation was enough to break the false contradiction I had created in my mind and reminded me that not understanding something deeply yet is not always a reason to run from it. Sometimes it is an invitation to learn it once and for all, an invitation to grow into the thing that scares but fascinates you. And after that conversation, I scrambled rather last minute, honestly, to submit my application for a pulmonary and critical care fellowship. During fellowship, in collaboration with one of my co-fellows and a fellowship physiology attendant, we read the original West Physiology textbook and we taught our co-fellows the physiology we were learning, and that was a blast. It felt like things were finally clicking. But then COVID happened. And like it did for so many of us in life and in medicine, it changed everything. The rest of the fellowship was spent caring for critically ill patients almost nonstop, often with very little sleep and very little rest, while navigating repeated loss. Loss of patients, loss of colleagues, loss of normalcy, loss of emotional reserves. It was a brutal time. And even through that, the foundation remained. The love of physiology remained. The love of pulmonary medicine remained. The desire to understand remained. And now here I am, a practicing pulmonologist. I would love to tell you that I am now a master pulmonary physiologist. But honestly, my personal journey toward mastery in pulmonary physiology is still ongoing, and maybe that is the point. Maybe the beauty of this field is not arriving at some final state of complete mastery. Maybe it is continuing to be humble, fascinated, and sharpened by it over time. For now, what I can say is I derive deep joy from caring for my patients with the knowledge I have gained along the way. And I find this field deeply beautiful. One of the things I have had to learn and I'm still learning is that loving medicine does not mean I have to abandon myself to it. It does not mean I have to accept chronic depletion as the price of meaningful work. It does not mean I have to normalize moral injury, self-neglect, or a way of practicing that leaves no room for rest, reflection, or recovery. Because if I harm myself in the name of helping others, that is still harm. And I cannot bring my best thinking, my best presence, or my best care to patients if I am chronically overriding my own humanity. So part of my evolution has been learning to honor both truths at once. I love complex physiology. I love caring for patients. I love thinking deeply. And I also need rest. I need time to decompress. I need space to recover, to research, to study. I need enough margin to carefully reflect on what I am seeing in practice and what a patient may really need. That realization shapes the way I practice today. It is part of why consulting work matters to me, because those choices create more room to breathe, room to recover, and room to give each patient, encounter, or question the attention and detail it deserves. So the lesson of the story is not that it is noble to tolerate abuse because you love medicine. The lesson for me is that curiosity is a gift, but it has to be held together with self-respect, rest, boundaries, and sustainability. That is the kind of physician I am still growing into. That is also part of why I created the space and why I chose pulmonary medicine. Not because it was easy, not because I understood it fully at the beginning, not because I was unafraid, but because the field kept calling me back. Because mentors helped me see possibilities where I saw uncertainty. Because physiology kept inviting me deeper, and because over time I realized that the challenge was not only to choose what I loved, but also to build a life and practice in which I could love it without disappearing inside of it. This has been Dr. Oriaku's Corner. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.